and then we'll see what we're doing and we'll listen to it. Because when you get a person like Kara in here, people like to listen to her. She has tens of thousands of followers, okay? Where is Gary McBride so we can get going? Gary?
And Joe, people want to know, are they able to applaud?
If you feel the need to applaud because you like what you said, then you go ahead and applaud.
No heckling.
All right? If I say something like Hillary Clinton and you want to say boo, I'm all right with that too. All right? You let your emotions. I'm an emotional guy. I don't like what's going on. Yeah, you're fine. Your involvement and if you yell something out, we're not going to be too upset about it. I'm not, because you probably said it for a reason. Gary McBride, come on up, okay? You're first on the first 15-minute block. Come on, Gary. His name is Gary. I call him Gary. Gary. That's what it sounds like to me, Gary. I'm Gary McBride. Okay. We are ready to rock and roll. Travis, my producer, you ready to go?
Yep.
Are you guys ready to go? You want some water or something for the table? All right. We're going to find the water real quick for Tara. And once we start, we're going to film. And it's no big deal. You know, this is a live kind of thing, but it's not live. You know, if you don't like something, I can't kill it. What I'd like to do is one take and get it all done. All right, we're good this evening. Okay. From the America First Warehouse, the voice in the wilderness. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to the American First Warehouse, where Patriots come to learn about, patriotic events and see great speakers. I know that we've had so many wonderful people here in the past, like recently Rudy Giuliani. Joe the Box, thank you so much for doing this. So I'm Kara Kashtanova, and I am here today to interview a lot of people that have invested a lot of their time and their life's work into exposing the truth about January 6th. And I'm one of those people. 2.5 years ago on January 6th, I was there and I witnessed what happened. I'm exposing myself. People are afraid to say. It's very sad. It's very sad that a lot of people are afraid to say that they were at January 6th. But I was there, and what I witnessed was a fairly peaceful event from the vantage point that I had. And I had the unfortunate experience of getting FBI visits to my house, which was very scary, and made me really start researching if this was legal, like these FBI agents were coming to my house just because I was at a protest. So I started to learn through the Gateway Pundit, which I now work for, that they were political prisoners. And this is going back to right after January 6th, almost like I said, 2.5 years ago. And I was outraged that there were political prisoners 2 months after. If somebody would have told me, fast forward 2.5 years later, those same exact guys would still be there, still pending trial, I never would have believed it. And we did the first rally. I started an organization called Citizens Against Political Persecution. And we did the first rally here in New York City to invite the media to and tell them that there were these prisoners. And I remember the Gateway Pundit covered it, as they always cover stuff first. And Epoch Times actually came, and they didn't even believe at the time that they were like, we have to verify all of this. Like, this can't be true. Like, there's no way that they're holding protesters in prison and they haven't been tried yet. They should be releasing them. That's not the American way. So a lot of people had to fact check that. And the Epoch Times actually finally broadcast that first rally, I think, only 6 months ago. So I started writing for Gateway Pundit, and that's how I met Gary McBride, who's been instrumental in so many of the articles that I've written, because he's really good with video. So we fill each other's gap. Like, he loves to watch video, and I start to, my eyes start to like bug out when I'm watching too much video. But he's like a genius with it, almost like Where's Waldo, where he can spot like anybody in the crowd, and he knows who they are, and it can be a crowd of thousands of people. So he has that really gift about him. And how we first became acquainted was I was speaking to a lot of the men in prison, and I was trying to help them raise money for their attorneys, because none of them had any. And I was hearing the same story from many, many prisoners over and over again, that there was a woman that was killed that day, and she was beaten. They witnessed her getting beaten by a police officer, and she was trampled because of police and tear gas. And I kept hearing the same story from guys who never met each other, who had never spoken to each other, but there was no, I wrote an article on it, but I didn't have video proof. And then that's how, I don't know how we came to meet, it was through another,
For the text group.
through a text to a friend, right, where Gary, she's like, you have to talk to this guy Gary, and I spoke to him, he goes, oh, I have the video. I'm like, you have the video? So he sends me a video of Lila Morris, who we didn't know her name at the time.
And that's when Carrie gets picky.
Yeah, that, and because I need to, you know, I need to show proof. If I'm going to allege, and I'm gonna let you talk a lot, I allege, that somebody, especially a police officer, and I'm, you know, obviously being watched by the FBI, killed somebody on January 6th, or allegedly did, I have to have proof. So he sent me the video, he was watching, I don't know why you were watching Mika and Joe, that's weird. He was watching Mika and Joe Scarborough, it was on his TV, and what they do is like and this is a fact, pretty factual as far as my knowledge goes, that the government will release to liberal media like the New York Times, which is a propaganda arm, videos that they want them to have, and then they'll play it on a loop on TV, and then everybody else picks up on it like MSNBC, and they were releasing body cam footage of what they thought made the crowd look bad. And they released a particular video of what looked like unhinged Trump supporters.
Yeah, and what she did when she released it, she said that the DOJ and FBI has released new footage that shows an officer made his way to the front of the crowd to save a woman who later died of a drug overdose. That was
They said, so what Gary sent me was, they were also saying, like Mika was saying it literally, look at these Trump supporters beating up cops. And then he's like, look at in the bottom right of the screen, you see Roseanne Boylan being beaten by a cop. So it was the opposite of what they were saying. And because they just read off of a teleprompter and don't do anything, they didn't even see it themselves. They're just reading off a teleprompter as they're playing this video. So Gary spotted that. He was like, oh my God. And he brought it to my attention. And then we really, really put that video out at that point. And if Gary wants it, you want to talk about, we didn't know who the police officer was. And Gary was able to get her badge number from the top of her helmet. We didn't know, we thought it was a guy at first. And we were trying to identify who this person was. And Gary, if you want to tell the story of how we were able to identify Lila Morris and put her name out there.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So when, before I knew that the badges were on their helmets, one of the things they're supposed to have is identification of their nameplate, their badge number, so that you can identify the cop. That's the whole purpose for it, but we couldn't find anything. So it dawned on me that the number on their helmets was their badge number. So I had about 15 cops that we needed to find out who their name was. One in particular was Lila Morris, who beat up Roseanne. I said nicely. So Garrett called me, wanted me to do a video, or wanted me to call the police department. I told her I don't have time for you to do it. And I said, if the guy answered the phone, be real sweet, and you'll get all the names. And she called me back 10 minutes later, all excited, and gave me Lila Morris's name. So I punched it into the computer real quick. And the first picture that came up was the picture at the Super Bowl with Lila Morris, Daniel Hodges, and Michael Fanone. And I won't say what I said multiple times, but I got excited and was screaming, jumping up and down. And she's on the phone. I could hear her want to know what it was, but we had Lila Morris's name, and I think it was September 13th or 14th when we found out her name of 21, because September 18th
right.
was the first time
she
we
was
met.
She was being honored when he said that, like at the Super Bowl for being a hero, along with the other criminal cops that sat on the January 6th committee and lied, which Gary has tons of proof that they lied. Their whole testimony was a sham. But she was getting honored by the mayor of DC at the Super Bowl after she literally beat the living crap. Well, that's a horrible way to put it, and I take that back. After she horrifically beat up Roseanne Boylan, who was unconscious at the time. And we've done so much investigations, and Gary forgot to left out the part where we tried to FOIA her name at first. We tried to get a Freedom of Information Act on, this is the badge number. They wouldn't give it to us, which is unconstitutional. You know if a cop has a badge number, you ask for the cop's name. They're a public service, you're supposed to give it. They wouldn't give us.
So we just called the police department.
So we called the police department in the middle of the night and just asked one of the desk people who, they're generally not the brightest, and we were like, well, I take that back. See, when I speak, when I'm going to go off book, I get myself in trouble. But, the person I picked up, I'm like, oh, there was a wonderful policewoman, her name was, her badge number is this. Can you tell me the person's name? And that's how we found out the name of Lila Morris. Right, 5863. So, we put that story out there, and then only until recently, it's been 2.5 years, and I'm assuming everybody in this room knows Roseanne Boylan's name, but believe it or not, 9 out of 10 conservatives don't know that a second woman was allegedly killed by police that day, which is very sad, because the news has very much been suppressed. And I just Wikipedia January 6th, and it still says that Roseanne Boylan died of a drug overdose.
Well,
which
we
isn't
filed
true.
a complaint against her also. They did a full investigation on her and came back and it said that it was objectively reasonable. So it's objectively reasonable what Roseanne did, or what Lila did to Roseanne, which is, again, a bunch of BS.
And it's become a really personal story for me and Gary. We've gotten to know her family well. We were working with Lara Logan on a documentary. She's coming here actually in a few weeks to New York to interview Gary. And I already did an interview with her, and we're going to tell the story of Roseanne. We met her family, who's heartbroken. We met her friends. We met multiple witnesses that day who says that she's definitely, and what I wanted to know was, did she suffer and was she alive when she was getting beat by Roseanne? And multiple witnesses said she was 100% alive and she was saying, please help me. Please help me. And that's when she started getting struck by Lila. So it's very sad to say, and I always apologize to her family that's listening. Because any family member I know from experience that loses somebody in an accident, the most comforting thing to know is they didn't see it coming. Or they
Whenever I would call Lana too, before I would show her any footage, I would
Lana's Roseanne's sister.
Yeah, I would prep her and tell her because I would want somebody to do that for me. So there's plenty of time we cried on the phone together and it was tough.
So that's how I came across Gary, and then since then he's uncovered so much more stuff. And I don't know, Gary, if you want to talk about one of the really great things that we uncovered. We were sitting in the Proud Boys trial, and literally we were the only people there. There was no media. I think maybe they had 2 family members there. This is the trial of the century, the Proud Boys trial that's supposed to get Trump. And literally it's me, Gary, and a couple other people in the courtroom, and that's it. We were the only witnesses to one of the biggest crimes, which is what happened in that courtroom, and how horrible that judge was, and the prosecution, and what they got away with. And Gary was sitting there, and we were watching the video, and I remember seeing a glitch in the video, and I'm like, why is there a glitch in the video? It was just too much of a coincidence, and I said to him, did you see that glitch? Like, why was there a glitch? And you can tell me.
I said, yeah, there's a glitch. I said, I have the same video, but there is no glitch. So what they were doing is they were covering up Ray Epps. They don't want you to see Ray Epps.
Exactly. So literally, they had a glitch in the Proud Boys. So they're trying to say
but the same video I have, same
yes,
video.
the same
no
video.
glitch.
And we went and looked at it, and there was no glitch. So literally, what they were trying to accuse the Proud Boys of, which was breaching the gate first,
They're
was
charging
Ray
them
Epps.
for breaking all the fencing around the Capitol.
And Ray Epps
but
and
Ray
his
Epps is the
groups.
one that instructed.
And that's when they glitched. So we broke that story, we put it out there, and that kind of went viral. So with him, Gary's been a tremendous help. And I wish I had more time to write about some of the stuff that he's brought out. Why don't you talk a little bit? I don't know if you're familiar with Officer Fanone, who's that treacherous cop that now works for CNN, fake news media, and he's complaining like how he was traumatized and a crybaby. Why don't you talk more about Fanone and Gary has he's seen his body camera footage. So why don't you talk a little bit about what he told the January 6th committee, Gary, and the lies that he told?
You can, if you want to see the video, you can go to my website, m5newsgate.com, and go to my media tab. But with the Fanone, we're not done with Fanone, with everything that we haven't covered on for him. I have something that I'll talk about Thursday with B.A. Miller that we found. So we'll talk about that Thursday. But Fanone was not drugged down head first like everybody claims. He was never on the ground. He was never kicked in the head. He was the one that tried to pull his weapon, and Kyle Fanone, it was the hero that day, tried to keep him from pulling that weapon.
Kyle is one of the defendants that's in jail, and he was sentenced to a lot of time because, and Fanone was a witness at his trial.
Well, they
and he said, I hope you suffer in jail. This is what he said to him. Because he was accused of trying to pull Fanone's gun on Fanone, when in reality he's seen the footage. It was Fanone who went to pull his gun on him, and the crowd jumped back. You could see it in the video.
Well, you see the old guy holding onto Fanone's wrist, and he's even on the ground just trying to keep him from pulling his weapon because he's got.
And they said he's pulling his gun, and what the news reported was that they said, get his gun.
Kill him with his own gun.
Kill him with his own gun. But in reality, what was said was he's pulling his gun, and everybody drew back. So it was just been
and never did say kill him with his own gun. The only true thing that Fanone said, the only true thing that he did was say that I've got kids. That's it. Everything else is a lie.
So the January 6th committee lied, and there's just so much proof of it, and all the other officers as well. We've proven. What's so frustrating sitting in those courtrooms, we were at Kyle Fitzsimmons' trial, Gary and I, and there was a wonderful public defender, actually. She was really good. She was a liberal, and an African American woman, and we were just shocked by how hard she was fighting for her defendant. And she proved without a reasonable doubt he was innocent with the video, because he was being accused of hitting officers. When she slowed that video down, he didn't touch an officer, he didn't pull a shield, and the judge took a month and a half. It was a judge trial. Gary sent some videos, and she used them in court. And we're like, wow, this is the first guy that's going to get down.
That footage was manipulated. They made Fitzsimons, he had a white jacket on, and when you see a white sleeve holding the shield, it's a long story, but that sleeve was not white, it was black first. So it changes color 6 times to make it look like he has a hold of the shield. On the trial, during the trial, Ganell, when he took the stand, which was the officer, she tore him up on the stand. I mean,
she did a great job.
He
thought
he
was
was
going to
not
win.
lying.
Right.
He should be in jail. And the judge said they'll be back like in, what was it? I think 2 weeks with the verdict. It took him 7 weeks.
And he came back guilty on all charges. This is what the judge came back with, and I'm going to talk about the judges a little later to you guys. And Tommy Tatum, on an interview as well, he was there. He got banned from the courtroom because he was so disgusted by this lying cop Ganell, who's writing a book, How One Immigrant Saved Democracy.
He's not a hero.
He saw his bike and footage. He was hiding out in the back the whole time, but he painted himself on the January 6th committee to be like Batman or Superman, like he was fighting all these Trump supporters.
He said it's medieval hand-to-hand combat for 5 hours. He fought.
And he's standing. He has the video of him standing in the back, basically like scratching his you know what. So he lied, and they're all liars. And Gary and I actually went together. I was in D.C. and we found out there was a local liberal college was having all these police officers come and make a speech. So we went down there, and
it was all 4 officers that were there. It was Dunn, Ganell, Hodges, and Fidel.
The crying cops that were there, and you can't make this stuff up. I'm not kidding you when I say Antifa was there, watching the presentation. These people that stalked Mickey, Ashley Babbitt's mother, constantly. And after everything was over, the main Antifa person, her name is, I'm not going to name her, whatever. This person, who I feel bad for, I pray for her. She was talking with Officer Fidel, for like 20 minutes. Like, why was the main Antifa person after this thing? I'm like, they're talking for like 20 minutes.
Tommy Tatum probably has more on that story.
It's not to be believed. Like, you can't make this stuff up. So it's such a wormhole to go down. But obviously it was
She targeted us outside. She waited for us.
Yeah, it's scary. Like, these people have absolutely no lives. But there's so much more stuff coming out of that January 6th that's soon to come, and then we're going to bring out Gary with this video. I've been doing more investigating onto like the Capitol Police side of it, and who was really responsible, and all that's coming up. But I wanted to give Gary more opportunity to talk about. He has a lot of the video. We have 1 minute, Gary. I want to give credit for setting this up, and also the video. Go to M5 News and check out everything he brings out. He has access to he has the video that they don't want you to see. That they're only letting very few journalists now go see in DC. And if you want to close, Gary, and tell people where they can see your wonderful work.
No, you can just go to m5newsgate.com and you can find my media tab there. And I want to thank Joe and Tony for letting us do this here from the First Storehouse. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Gary. And I'm telling you, he's like a hero. This guy spends every waking second, watching this video, and he comes up with something new every day. But the unfortunate thing is the mainstream media won't cover it. It's very frustrating. And maybe in 10 years they will, and it'll be breaking news, but you heard it with him first.
And you.
I think one of the things I'd like to do is be able to see some of the videos that you're talking about, Gary. So hopefully in the next couple of days we'll be able to show some of these facts. I saw them. I saw this Fanone guy, and it disgusts me every time I think about it. We're going to take a quick 5 minutes just to get it together. We're going to go to the next segment. Who are you getting next? Tommy Tatum. Did you have enough to eat, Tommy? Did you have enough to eat tonight?
All right, I'm gonna stop the stream, guys, and I'm gonna open back up in a new stream on my other phone where Rumble will pick up. Okay, so please come right back.